that's a Sactown thing. Talking about us, it's a bounce out thing. Must they forgot we some Sacramento Kings. Whole squad going crazy, yeah, we back with it. Northern Cali going crazy, one sack winning. If you doubted us then, ain't no backspinning. This is real right here, ain't no catfishing. So tell me what you see now. Coming down the lane off the rebound. It's 9:16 now. Look towards the sky like the beam now. Tell them like the beam, like the beam now. You can tell them like the beam now. Tell them like the beam now. You can tell them like the beam now. Tell them like the beam, like the beam now. You can tell them like the beam now. Tell them like the beam now. If you reppin' that Kings like the beam now. Sac proud, make sure everyone knows. Let me tell you how this thing really goes. Yeah, we travel deep, whether we home or on the road, we lit. You don't want that smoke, we the team of the year. We shaking things over here, don't doubt, we believe over here. We don't bleed over here. And let me just speak real clear, only deal with real kings over here. So tell me what you see now. Coming down the lane off the rebound. It's 9:16 now. Look toward the sky like the beam now. Tell them like the beam, like the beam now. You can tell them like the beam now. Tell them like the beam now. You can tell them like the beam now. Tell them like the beam, like the beam now. You can tell them like the beam now. Tell them like the beam now. If you reppin' that Kings like the beam now. Yeah, we pull up, and we hop out. Yeah, we pull up, and we hop out. Yeah, we pull up, and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up, and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up, and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up, and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up, and we hop out. Talking about some things you was not about. Tell them we don't play like the lockout. Got me feeling like Yeezy on the dropout. Can't deal with no phonies. Flow like baloney. Ain't no game round here, homeboy. This ain't Sony. They said they gon' show me. It's in me, not on me. Ha, you don't know me. Tell the game what's up now. They hating from the bus now. Been doing this T-Pain. Drop the up, down. Oh, I'm on the hunt now. Tell me what you want now. Yeah, I do my dance when you see me in the touchdown. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out.
Yeah, if we pulling up, my nigga, let me know. And if the haters hate, we finna let him go. Pull up, pop out, two-step, hit the torpedo. When we do our thing, homie, don't let your shorty go. Everywhere we go, we do the stupid dance. I've been doing this since Soulja Boy taught y'all the Superman. Always showing love, we play the stupid jams. Hit you with them shots and got that kinda aim that Cupid has. We ain't never scared, we don't play about it. Keep the party going, give a damn what they say about it. Gotta keep it simple, this for everybody. Ladies and the homies, it's a function, we don't care about it. Flopping in the whip, got the speakers going crazy. Block party lit, family geeking, getting waved. Grannies to the uncles, to the nieces, to the babes. We gon' get it cracking like a weekend.
Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah, we pull up and we hop out. Do our dance, then we bring the whole block out. Yeah. Back on my bull. Back on my cool. I'm turning it up. They feeling the heat, so they searching for pools. Tripping on me because I'm doing my thing. And
what's up, guys? Welcome in. Don't forget to smash up that like button, hit that subscribe button, and say hi in the chat. We're gonna get started here shortly.
Give me your pride and I'm breaking that too. They ain't ahead of us. They don't compare to us. They feeling the kick because they hearing the change like I open the register. Flexing on tracks because this thing is not optional. Leg day is coming, I'm jumping the obstacles. Laughing at haters, we thinking it's comical. Yelling outside like we yelling out dominoes. Always be claiming they monsters. Boy, go get you a sponsor. All of that chatting, all of that acting, gon' mess around, get you an Oscar. They calling me Terrence, I hustle and flow. They all on my line cause I'm still in the vogue. Your girl all on me cause she feeling the stroke. Make them say whoa when I'm hitting my woe. Talking like I do not got it. You talking like your boy is not it. When you talk, all I hear is yappa, yappa, yada, 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 yada. Most of your favorites ain't dealing with me. Pouring it up like the end of the week. You don't let us in, we still in the keys. We coming from nothing and ending the street. Aiming at throats and taking out knees. They feeling the pressure and know they can't breathe. Winning the races and taking the places and walking their stages like it's a degree. Feel it in your veins, it's a dope flow. Got the whole game in a chokehold. They taking too long, you can't see me now. Put them in boxes like photos. Packing the bags and hitting new land. I do what I want, they do what they can. All in their way, I'm messing up plans. I'm speaking the truth, I keep it a Grant. Waiting for Zell, never will fail. Waist looking slim, she eating her kale. I'm peeping the game and playing it well. She throwing it back like it's way too exhale. Come from the pain and not chasing no fame. I come up with morals, can't slander my name. Taking what's mine and grabbing the flame. Shooting my shot and yelling out game. Know what's real when I'm giving the feel. Can't look back when you turning the wheel. Go get a doctor, I'm giving the chills. Told them to get out, grab the key and they pill. I warn them that I am a factor. Clearing the way for this tractor. Got some new goals, never will fold. Came too far just to back up. Nah, this ain't what you used to. We ain't tripping on nobody, we just moved through. You couldn't keep up, cause my steps too long. It's time to wake them up, they have slept too long. Zell. They do not know what Sactown brings. When on the low, that's a Sactown.
Welcome to Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wildin' in the stands. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gon' be our year. We're here, drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring, yeah.
What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds, the Sacramento Kings YouTube channel for fans, by fans. Happy Saturday to everybody out there, and thank you. Shout out to everybody that's watching right now and everybody in the chat. Dara is here. Jeff is here. Daniel, Fred. We even got LeBron in the house. Good to see you all, and thanks for joining in. Calvin, happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday, Barry. Happy summer. Happy NBA off season. All of that.
Yeah, what's up, T? Good to see you. Yeah, good Saturday so far. Calvin and I have been doing some hiking. Went to the beach. Good day so far. But, hey, we wanted to touch base with you all. I know it's been a little while. We talked after the Denver Nuggets did clinch the NBA Finals, and they were officially the champion. And we know Thursday is the NBA Draft. So we wanted to hang out with you guys a little bit today, talk about some rumors, some news that's currently going on. What's up, Christian? Good to see you. And then I guess prepare everybody for the draft. So I guess without further ado, Calvin, let's get started. But before we do that, don't forget to smash up that like button, hit that subscribe button, and it is good to see you all. Also, as you can tell, YouTube has added emojis now that you can smash on the right. I see somebody hitting the hearts right now in the 100s. So smash up those emoji buttons. It makes it more fun for us. But hey, Calvin, I mean, I guess we can just jump right into a few things real quick before we get into the Sacramento Kings. First off, big news. Michael Jordan selling his ownership stake in the Charlotte Hornets. Although Michael Jordan has not been known as a winner, as an owner, he went big in this deal, Calvin. He made a ton of money, even though they didn't win many basketball games. What are your thoughts regarding this sale of the Charlotte Hornets?
That once again, Michael Jordan finds a way to win, even though, as you mentioned, his team doesn't do much of it on the court. $3 billion is what he's going to get for his majority stake in the team. And hopefully, if you're a Charlotte Hornets fan, it means that there are better days ahead, I guess. Maybe the team starts winning more games now. I don't know. It's there's a lot to make about his tenure there.
Yeah.
A lot of good stories, I think, that are off the court things. There's the story about him being so pissed that they lost one time. He showed up to practice the next day, played with the second string team, and whooped the starters' asses. I don't know if that's true or not.
That's easy when your starters suck.
Yeah, I know. That is true. A lot of good stories that unfortunately just none of them have anything to do with Charlotte winning games. They have the lowest winning percentage of any NBA team by far during his ownership time there.
Michael Jordan doesn't give a shit about other people's confidence. We definitely know that. Maybe not the best mentor, although one of the all-time greats, if not the greatest basketball player of all time. It was reported by Mark J. Spears. Interesting thing here, now that Michael Jordan is out, there are only 2 people of color who now have majority ownership in NBA teams. That is, of course, Vivek Ranadive of the Sacramento Kings and Brooklyn Nets owner Joe Tsai, as opposed to 82.44% of NBA players are people of color. We know guys like D. Wade has taken a minor ownership role with the Utah Jazz.
Yep.
Shaq did sell his minority role with the Kings in 2022. Horrible timing for him. And then we know quite a few people, like LeBron is one of them, have wanted or stated that they want to own franchises in the future. Calvin, any thoughts regarding this?
Well, I mean, it's a big topic of debate, right? You'd like to see more of it. I think we are going to see more of it in years to come here. I mean, LeBron is definitely the most prominent name.
He's got the desire, and
he's also got
money.
the most money to it. But so I think that there's definitely going to be more of this stuff coming in the future. And I do personally like the idea of, former players being involved in this stuff as well. I think it's good for the organization to have somebody that has that type of experience, at the head of it all, and kind of being one of the main voices and leaders within an organization. I think that can only be a good thing for a professional sports franchise. So we'll see how it plays out. But I mean, as this conversation could get derailed really fast if you wanted to get into it, not just in the NBA. There's all the stuff that's gone on in the NFL over the last 10 years or so. Many owners have been forced, or not many, but a few of them have been forced to sell the team for a variety of reasons. So
even
I think it's good to, even in the NBA, it's good to see people who, have, are well respected and have all these clean, so to speak, backgrounds and all of that stuff, trying to crack the door and get into this ownership wheel.
Shout out to Charlie for joining in. Good to see you, Charlie. For me, I guess the disappointing thing here is just the fact that this is a former basketball player, and there's no more former basketball players now that have majority ownership in teams. Michael Jordan, we've known him as a trailblazer, not the team, but the person throughout his entire career. And it's really cool to see, I guess, the perception of a basketball player change, right? From this jock that wasn't good at anything other than playing basketball to becoming these great businessmen that have leveraged their personality, their image, their likeness to, have life-changing wealth for them and their families, and even advance into ownership roles and other really, really cool things. So that's a little disappointing for me, because I know that a lot of players not only looked up to Michael Jordan because of the amazing basketball player he was, but how he was able to kind of, supersede basketball and become an owner, which, as we mentioned, a lot of players want to do now. So that is really, really cool. The confusing thing for me about this entire situation, Calvin, is Michael Jordan doesn't need any money, Calvin. Why sell the team? It doesn't make any sense to me. You could be a silent owner, and you could put somebody else there in a position to help the team succeed. But why sell the team? It doesn't really make any sense to me.
Well, that's ultimately going to be a question only Michael Jordan can answer, right? But I think we talked already about his personality and how driven he is by success and winning. All of us are to a certain extent, but there are some people like him that, maybe take it a little bit more seriously or take it to another level.
Yep.
And I think if you do that for that long, take it personal, so to speak. If you do it for that long and you don't have any success, really at all to speak of.
Yep.
After a while, you know, you might look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, what am I doing here anymore? This kind of isn't really giving me what I want out of it. Maybe I'm not being able to give guys the success that I want them to have as well. That could be part of the problem. And, you know, at the end of the day, like a bad marriage or something, the two sides end up coming together and saying, look, it's better off if we just go our separate ways.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And as you mentioned, a guy that is obsessed with winning and finding any way to win in any area of life, the only way that maybe he could win this situation is by making $2.5 billion selling the team. That's a win right there.
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to say no to that, right? If it's going to be a byproduct of breaking up with the team or not being the owner or whatever, if you're able to get $3 billion dollars out of it, I don't think you're going to be too upset.
Do you see him ever buying back in? Maybe not with the Hornets, maybe with another franchise, or maybe joining an ownership group?
Perhaps. Yeah, I could see that. I don't think he'll ever go the majority route again like this, but I could see him being involved in one way or another, whether it was minority or special advisor or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, that'd definitely be exciting. So anyway,
because just like all of these guys, he's got his hand in a lot of different things. It's not like this is the only thing he's been doing for the last 13 years. Yeah, he's got a tequila brand. He's got all sorts of things. And, of course, there's Jordan Brand as well that he's able to hang his hat on.
Crazy. So. Well, shout out to the GOAT, Michael Jordan. And hopefully we'll see you again someday. Maybe selling the team will make him get more involved in the NBA, although...
Maybe we'll never hear or see him again.
Yeah, maybe. All right. In other news, and yes, guys, we are going to talk about the Sacramento Kings today. We have a ton to talk about regarding the Kings, and I want to talk about all these trade rumors, go over the draft stuff, all that. But there's one more pressing topic that we need to dive into before that, Calvin. And this is something that came out yesterday, I believe. It was a surprise to me, and that's Ja Morant, the suspension. I predicted, or you predicted, that it was going to be the day after the parade, which happened.
Pretty close.
It happened, right? The parade was on Thursday. It was announced on Friday. And it's officially a 25-game suspension for Ja Morant. Calvin, I think it's BS. What about you?
I'm surprised. I thought it was going to be more games. I'm also surprised that Nike has already released a statement saying they're going to stick with Ja. They're going to stand by him. Yeah. Basically the exact same statement they gave after the first suspension, right? We are proud of him for doing, taking accountability on himself and being responsible and doing the things that he needs to do to get better. I don't see how he's done any of that if we're still in this situation.
We're cool with guns, but don't post a link to an Amazon
Exactly.
video.
If you ever do that, you're done. But I realize that there's more to it than just that. That Nike has lost a lot of money, whether it was Kyrie or Ja now, with both of these deals. And there's a lot of stuff. When that much money is involved, there's a lot more than meets the eye. But I'm surprised that it was only 25 games. I was.
Yeah. I want to hear from you guys, everybody that's watching on YouTube right now. Let me know in the chat if you are happy, if you think 25 games is enough, if you think it's too much. I'd love to hear from you guys, so let us know in the chat. Like I said, I think it's BS personally, but I also understand the other side. Obviously, there's a slippery slope. You suspend this guy for a year or longer, maybe he kind of slips further towards that dark path. And less towards the open arms of the NBA, right? It's almost like a parenting style thing, right? As a dog owner, your dog runs away. When they come back, do you punish them? And you're like, what the F, you ran away? Or are you like, I'm so happy you came back, right? And so it's an interesting take here, but it's definitely good news for Ja Morant. It's good news for the Memphis Grizzlies, and we'll see what happens. 25 games is still a lot.
It is a lot, and Christian makes a good point here. He's going to lose a lot of money on top of this. It's not just the games. I think it was reported that it's around $50 million he could lose.
But he's suing that kid, right? So he should be making up some of that.
Yeah, something like
that.
For
defamation.
We'll see
Crazy.
about that.
Crazy. Any other thoughts on this before we move on?
I'm glad that it's over with now for now, and we can concentrate on a really, really exciting and important, NBA summer draft and free agency, because like I said on the last show, and we've already seen kind of it going towards that, I think it's going to be mayhem here for the next few weeks. So I'm just glad that this is over with for now, and we won't have to really talk about it again until, well, I guess, the season starts, they'll talk about it, and then 25 games in, we'll talk about it again because they'll be coming back. But
I got to say, I'm a little disappointed in Adam Silver here. By the sound of it, we don't want to disrupt the finals. We unearthed all of this new information. I thought it was going to be something serious, Calvin. And this thing was announced yesterday. It's basically felt like it's been kind of just swept under the rug. Yeah. Fire somebody on a Friday. There's less chance of a workplace incident, right. Less people on ESPN talking about it. So maybe this is good timing for the NBA. But, hey, I thought there was going to be some fireworks going off, and instead we got one of those little guns that went poof, bang. That's it.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Moving on here, Calvin. I'm going to throw you the floor here. A lot of rumors swirling about the Kings, the Golden State Warriors. You got Karl Anthony Towns. You're hearing about Zion, the Miami Heat, Bradley Beal. Like, where do you want to start?
I want to start right in the heart of it with Sacramento.
Let's
because why not?
I mean, do it. Why not?
Not only is that what we all care about here, the team we all care about, but for once, this is new ground for us, new uncharted territory, or at least within the last couple of decades for this team to be in this situation where the Kings are a good team, and now all of a sudden you're seeing the more money, more problems sort of metaphor that comes with that, right? You're going to be in these situations where you potentially have the opportunity to go out and get some all NBA talent. The question now becomes, is it worth it? What are you willing to give up? How all in do you go for some of these guys? And who would you rather have? I think they're all good problems to have. Again, Monty being, the architect of this and his track record, I've got a lot of trust in him that he's going to make good decisions. But I just think that it speaks more to where the Sacramento Kings are in the NBA landscape right now, that A, they have a shot at some of these guys, B, those guys want to play for this team, and C, how do you handle all of that with, we've got a really, really good team now, and we're trying to get to the next level. The Tyrese Halliburton trade was really interesting. Whether you thought it was good or bad at the time, he was sort of like the sacrificial lamb so that this team could take the next step. Now you're in a situation where, okay, we have a chance to get another all-star potentially or all-NBA level player, but are you willing to risk how much are you willing to risk giving up in order to get to that spot? And are you going to actually take a step backwards potentially if you do a move like that?
Yeah, a lot of questions there. As Kings Next Level shout out and JN shout out says in the chat here, good becomes great this offseason. That's exactly what the Kings are trying to do. They're trying to, we built the foundation. The foundation's solid. It's looking good. It's time to put up some studs, Calvin, and see if we can maybe hang some drywall and see what's happening here. So there's quite a few players that have been linked to the Sacramento Kings. OG Anunoby is one. Bradley Beal is one. We know Harrison Barnes is a unrestricted free agent. He's hinted at wanting to come back in Sacramento. So let's start off with these guys. First, Calvin, let's talk about Bradley Beal. Let's talk about OG Anunoby, what you think it would take for the Kings to get one of these guys, and the difference you think either of these guys would bring to the Kings.
Man, again, a lot to unpack there, right? Well, first of all, Bradley Beal's got an albatross of a contract, right? So any deal that you are looking to do for him, combined with the no trade clause, does help, I think, some smaller market teams because he can kind of force his way into a deal there.
And he said he'd waive it to go to Sacramento.
And he said he would waive it to go to Sacramento.
That's crazy.
But you you're going to have to give up a lot in order to get him, right? Now, from a basketball standpoint, putting him in the backcourt with De'Aaron Fox and having Sabonis, just at bare minimum, having those three, that's a great foundation to start with.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about 3 all-star players potentially, 3 all-NBA level players potentially. Bradley Beal's missed a bunch of games in the last few years. OG has also missed a bunch of games in the last few years. So how much does that concern you? How much does that weigh into your decision-making? And certainly the money is going to weigh in a lot as well, because it's going to determine how much or what other assets you can use to fill out the rest of this roster. And then there comes the decision of looking at the assets that you're sending out. Which guys are you willing to part with? Which guys are you not? I think that everybody who supports this team is probably on the same page that Keegan Murray should not be traded at this point. You're going to try to hold on to him if at all possible. Davion's the one name to me that keeps coming up, that as much as I would love to have Davion, I think he's probably the most likely of the young guys to go one of the first dominoes to go in these deals. And then you look at OG, there's just so much going on here, because you should be able to get a guy like OG for less than what it takes to get Bradley Beal.
You'd
Then
hope so.
Exactly. You look back last summer, Rudy Gobert gets traded for 1 million draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
That has had ripple effects on the NBA ever since that moment. And I think it's going to continue to have an effect this summer, because teams are going to set asking prices incredibly high for players that, while they're really good players and fit the system very, very well, like OG, plug him into this lineup, whether you lose Kevin Huerter in the starting lineup or whether you lose, Davion off the bench or something like that, as long as you still have most of the same group together, inserting OG into the starting lineup with his three-point shooting and his defensive versatility, that's an absolute home run for the Kings in terms of a fit standpoint. But is it worth potentially 3 picks, whether it's 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, plus 2 players on top of that?
That's a lot.
For a guy that's played not a ton of games in the last 3 years, is a great player, but not an all-star. Mm-hmm. Is that an asking price that you're willing to, or you're going to look at yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, we'll do this deal? It's very interesting. And then you combine that with the fact that there's still a lot of great players open in free agency that you don't have to give up anything other than money to get. Yep. So, again, it's more money, more problems kind of a situation here for the Kings, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Gobert trade, and I think that could help and or hurt teams in trading for big name players, because first off, you said it set an extremely high asking price for talented players, but at the same time, I think a lot of teams looked at that deal and was like, wow, Minnesota screwed themselves by making that deal. And maybe that will drive the price of some of these guys down, because teams aren't going to be willing to give up 1 million draft picks to bring in a guy for a gamble, right, to see if it fits. So that being said, of course, I'm going to stick to what I've been saying the past few years, and, it really depends on what the deal is and what you have to give up. I always want to try and bring in more talent than I send out, but I understand, like in the Halliburton trade, you have to trade good players to get good players. Honestly, for me, I'd rather have Bradley Beal. Like, he's going to be my first target. I've been a huge Bradley Beal fan. I think he would be phenomenal at the 2 guard. I think there was spurts. As amazing of a scoring team this Kings team was last season, there were spurts where they couldn't score. And whether it was they were just jacking up threes or whatever, they couldn't get to the basket. That seemed like moments they didn't have a guy that could just go and get them a bucket when they really, really needed it. Now, De'Aaron Fox was that guy late in games, but he wasn't always available. And Bradley Beal, that's something that Bradley Beal can definitely do. He was leading the league in scoring last year before he got injured. He's got 3 years left on the deal plus a player option. I think the total combined is about $204 million, something like that, as opposed to a guy like OG Anunoby, who he can score, but he's mainly a defensive first guy. He's got a year left on his deal plus a player option. I think the total is about $38 million or something for 2 of those years. So that kind of aligns him up with Sabonis. If I'm giving up a lot, I think I want a guy that's locked up a little bit more long-term. Now, Bradley Beal has been in the league for a really long time. I was talking to a friend just a couple days ago. He thought Bradley Beal was 33, 34 years old. Bradley Beal's 29. He turns 30 in a week or so, couple weeks.
Something like that.
So the dude would be the older player on this team, but he's a little bit younger than Harrison Barnes. And I think he's in the middle of his prime. Yes, he's dealt with some injuries, but the dude is an absolute stud. In my opinion, he's one of the best shooting guards in the NBA. And if we're going to talk about a fit thing, he's already played with a guy that's very similar to De'Aaron Fox and John Wall and excelled playing next to him. So I think a combo of Fox and Beal would work out phenomenally. You add in Sabonis, it gives them a whole nother look there. But, of course, I'd be happy with either of these guys, OG or Bradley Beal. I want the Kings to make a move. I really don't want them to give up too much. I've seen rumors about draft picks, Davion Mitchell, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter. I'm going to try and hold on to Malik as much as I can, make him my sixth man. But I think if you were to bring in another guy on this team, it's probably going to be a two-guard to replace Kevin Huerter, and that's either going to be OG Anunoby or Bradley Beal in terms of big blockbuster deals.
Yeah, I would say so at this point. I mean, a lot of the other guys that we've talked about who would fit well on the Kings are going to be free agents, so you don't have to trade for them, right? I mean, Brook Lopez's name is out there, Jeremy Grant, those guys, whether it's fortunate or not, you wouldn't have to make some sort of a deal. I think it would be great if the Kings were able to get either one of these guys, Bradley Beal or OG. I think that they would fit really well. I do question how much more difficult it becomes to do a Sabonis extension if you trade for Bradley Beal, right?
Yeah.
Just because there's already a lot of money committed, and you're talking about another max contract potentially. And of course, the new CBA has a lot of provisions for why it would make it easier to do that, being able to pay Sabonis more. Mm-hmm. But are the Kings willing to spend all that money? I don't know the answer to that question. So
the good thing for the Kings is they're not repeat offenders like Golden State Warriors or LA Lakers that have been paying a ton of money for a long time. They've been kind of skirting right in there. So that's good for them. And who knows? I mean, as an owner, Vivek, we know he has plenty of money. He's one of the richest owners in the NBA. Not the richest, but he's on the higher end there. And he's owned this team, and this team has done nothing during his ownership time until now.
Yeah.
This last season, now if that wouldn't have happened, I would have gone a totally different direction. But now I think he's tasting the success. Maybe that makes him open his pocketbook up a little bit more.
Might.
I'd be happy to re-sign Sabonis this offseason, make a big trade for a Bradley Beal or something like that. But I think another point to note here is that Harrison Barnes is probably going to have to be included in one of these deals, especially a Bradley Beal. It's probably going to have to be a sign and trade, including a Harrison Barnes. So whatever your thoughts are on Harrison Barnes, if you want him back on the Kings, you're probably not going to get him and Bradley Beal. I don't think that will happen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you mentioned Bradley Beal was willing to waive a no-trade clause to go to the Sacramento Kings. Now, this is a guy that we've been predicting to be traded for 5 years now, right?
Yeah.
And they've held on to him. He's never said that he wanted to leave the Wizards or anything like that. I love guys that are loyal, especially on a small market team like the Sacramento Kings. I love guys that are happy, that want to stay where they're at. And if he's willing to come to Sacramento, Calvin, if he wants to play in Sacramento, I'm going to do whatever I can to try and bring him there. Now, yes, I don't want to give up Fox. I don't want to give up Sabonis. I don't want to give up my guy Keegan Murray. But almost everybody else is going to be available.
Yeah, I do think that one of the things that's going to hurt Sacramento, you mentioned earlier the Rudy Gobert trade, maybe making teams a little bit more cautious, and so that would drive prices down. Demand across the NBA, not just for Bradley Beal, but demand for quality players, the number of good teams that think they are close to being able to compete or already competing, very, very high right now.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really hard to get a deal done just because you're going to have so much interest and so much outside competition coming from all over the place. And it's not teams that just have a million draft picks to throw around. It's the Miami Heat. It's Boston. It's all of these teams that have real chances to win. And when you're talking about a guy that has a no trade clause, that might come into play big time here. So that could definitely hurt Sacramento when it comes to trying to acquire a guy like Bradley Beal.
And you have teams that are pot committed, like the Dallas Mavericks and the Phoenix Suns, that tried to make big deals to try and make a run in the playoffs this last season. Didn't quite work out for them. And they're kind of like, hey, we need to do something, another big splash deal. So, yeah, there could be a lot of buyers this offseason. So, Calvin, I mean, let's say you're in charge here. Well, actually, real quick, before we do this, we had a question here in the chat. Somebody said, are you doing OG for Kevin and Davion? Would you do that deal?
Without having to give up any draft picks? Probably.
Okay.
Well, I don't know about – I'd have to think about it. But, yeah, I'm leaning towards doing that just right now.
If price wasn't an issue, who are you taking over these two guys?
If price wasn't an issue, it's Bradley Beal for me.
Bradley Beal.
I mean, I just think, like you mentioned, he's one of the best, if not the best, shooting guard in the game right now. You can make an argument for that. Certainly a top, 3 or 4. And I am getting close.
Yeah, Derek.
I am getting close. But Bradley Beal is in the prime of his career. He's a more complete player than OG.
Yeah.
Not maybe an elite, as elite of a defender as OG is, but across the board, he's the better player. That's the guy that I would want to have on my team if money wasn't an issue.
Yeah, and Davion, I wouldn't say he's easy to replace. He's replaceable, but honestly, Kevin Huerter, it's crazy how fast the fans turned on Kevin Huerter. But either of these guys would be the replacement for Kevin Huerter. So you wouldn't have to find a Kevin Huerter replacement. Bradley Beal or OG is the Kevin Huerter replacement. If there was anybody in the NBA you could get and price wasn't an option, would Bradley Beal still be number one on that list, or is there another guy that you would really go
anybody
after?
In the league?
I mean, something that's doable, right? We know that Bradley Beal's potentially available. You're not trading for Giannis. You're not trading for Luka Doncic.
I think if you had unlimited money to spend and there was no, and I wouldn't be trading for any of these guys. I'd be in free agency. I'd probably sign Jeremy Grant and Brook Lopez tomorrow.
Okay. There you go. Over bringing in Bradley Beal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you'd have to trade for him.
Yeah, that is true. That is very, very true. Interesting. Calvin, what other rumors are we hearing going around in the NBA right now regarding available players?
Well, there's a ton. I mean, the most recent news I can think of is it's been being reported that Draymond is going to decline his player option with the Warriors, making him an unrestricted free agent. His name, whether you like it or not, gets linked to the Sacramento Kings a lot as well. And then, of course, you've still got guys like James Harden. That next week is a huge week because all these guys will have to determine whether or not they're going to accept or decline their player options. So you've got Draymond, Chris Middleton, James Harden. Mm-hmm. There's another big one in there that I'm not thinking of. Kyle Kuzma, maybe?
Kuzma?
I mean, all of those guys, you combine their 1-year player option salaries, it's like well over $250 million. So
yeah,
it's a lot of money. A lot of money.
It is definitely a lot of money. Would you bring Draymond to Sacramento? What would you offer him in free agency?
I don't know. There are a lot of guys I'd rather have first before I settled on Draymond. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I agree. Not the biggest Draymond fan, and I don't think the Kings are in on Draymond after what happened in the first round of the playoffs. I think this Kings team is really looking to back up Sabonis, and I don't think Sabonis would be happy with the Draymond Green addition at this point. So I think Draymond is off the table for the Kings. Like I've been saying for about a year, I expect him to get a close to a max deal from the Detroit Pistons, and I expect him to be on the Pistons next year. I really do.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. I don't know. I still think the Warriors are in play here. I feel like they don't want to let him walk for nothing. They want him back on the team. And they've shown in the past that they're willing to spend money. So
Yep.
they're definitely still in play big for him, I would say.
We know
But
Mike
there's just so
Dunleavy
much that Mike Dunleavy is going to take over. Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking, I know that I said I didn't think Bob Myers was going to stay with the team, but I'm reading a little bit between the lines here, and I'm like, maybe Bob Myers knew Draymond was going to opt out. Maybe he's had discussions with him, and he wants to bring Draymond back, but ownership is not on the same page, and that's maybe why Bob Myers is out.
Possible. Very
Could be
possible.
very, very interesting. Another big name on the block, Calvin. A guy we talked about last year, and it's really been a roller coaster. His career's been a roller coaster, and we've had roller coasters on this show about him. One show, he's the best player in the league. The next show, he's never going to play again. Zion Williamson, Calvin, is apparently available. What the hell?
Well, the Pelicans have been talked about a lot as being really, really all in to try and get into the top 3 so they can take Scoot Henderson. So I have heard they've discussed sending Zion to Charlotte for the 2nd pick.
Trade a number 1 overall pick for a lesser pick.
Well, if the guy never plays, how important is it that he was the number 1 pick? It's going to be really interesting to see here. I kind of assumed that the Wizards would be on that same track here with blowing it up and having a guy like Bradley Beal available. I would have guessed that one of their top goals or priorities was to see how high they could get in the draft as well. But it's sort of sounding like maybe they're not going to do that. I also saw a rumor that they're floating out there Porzingis to Portland for the 3rd pick. He's another guy I think that has a player option as well.
I would not do that if I was Portland.
So obviously you're going to hear a lot of crazy stuff right now, but I do think that there's a lot of traction behind that. New Orleans trying to move up as high as they can. And of course, Zion has been not really a failed experiment, but definitely leaving a lot more wanted there, right? So if you had the opportunity and you could still hold on to a guy like Brandon Ingram, they've got a lot of young talent on that team as well, plus you can add a top 3 pick. Maybe you are saying, all right, we'll pull the trigger there.
Yeah, so here's the crazy thing, right? Zion's 22 years old. He's been in the league for 4 years. He's played 114 games.
Crazy.
He played 29 games last year, missed the playoffs. The year before that did not play. Played 61 games the year before that and only 24 games his rookie season. But these stats are incredible, Calvin. I mean, he's averaging almost 26 points a game, 7 rebounds, and almost 4 assists for his career. But the even crazier numbers, Calvin, is starting next year, he's entering his max deal for $207 million guaranteed. So he's under contract for $33.5 million next year, $36 million the year after that, $39 million after that, $41 million, and then almost $45 million for 2027, 2028. That is a lot of money. The guy could be the next superstar and face of the NBA, or he could be the next Greg Oden, Calvin, but on a max deal.
Yeah.
So if you're Portland, would you trade Damian Lillard for Zion?
I don't think I would.
Okay.
Actually.
You'd offer him the number 3 pick?
Yeah.
Say we'll give you 3 for Zion. We'll give you 3 in Nurkic.
Well, and you're going to probably have to send out more than that too, but
wow, that's crazy.
It's
really, really crazy.
Portland could be in the same situation as Washington, right? They've got this guy who is, still playing at a really, really high level.
Yeah.
I think Damian Lillard actually had the most 40-point games in the NBA last year, and that's without playing for like the last month or season or something like that. But they could be fielding, so many calls about him. And it sounds like, at least from what I've read, that they're not willing to trade him yet. So you can have a lot of different feelings about that. He's been really loyal to them. I guess they're trying to give it one last run here at putting a team around him. which, it sounds fair to me, but it's a hard situation to be in if you're a GM, right?
What do you think about Zion on the Kings?
I mean, again, I like the idea of it, but is it worth the risk? How many games is the guy going to play? I just don't know.
Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, and Davion Mitchell should make the salaries work. Would you do that deal if you're the Kings for Zion? He could be your 4. He could be your rim protector. He could be
the next Greg Oden. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a really, really tough one. I think if you're just thinking about the hypotheticals and what it would look like, LaMelo Ball and Zion together would be pretty amazing. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Like that sounds like a pretty amazing combination. They're far from being a contending team outside of just those two guys. Mm-hmm. But if I could pick 2 players that, their styles would match really, really well together, that would be a really good start right there.
I'd throw Tyrese Halliburton in there too. Tyrese and Zion would be an awesome combination. We mentioned Greg Oden, and, I'm not trying to diss on Greg or on Zion, but I do have to say, Calvin, I think that a move like this for the Kings, and I'm talking about Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, and maybe a Davion for a Zion Williamson, is more possible than people think. And I think it has less of a downside than people think too, because let's say Zion does become the next Greg Oden. We've seen the NBA side with teams lately in terms of giving them exceptions to sign other players, medical exceptions, stuff like that, exemptions, sorry. So if Zion, let's say, were to have an injury where he was out for 2 seasons, I think the NBA would step in and say, hey, we'll let you guys sign somebody else. We're not going to count his salary towards your salary cap. Then again, that is a gamble in itself, thinking that, hey, maybe they'll help us out. But, Cal, I think kind of what we were talking about on the last podcast of the Kings are in a position right now where they can take a swing for the fences. And a trade for Zion Williamson, as long as you're not giving up too much, and I don't think Harrison Barnes, Rashawn Holmes, and Davion Mitchell is too much, could work out fantastic for Sacramento. And this could be the kind of move that they need to propel them to the next stage.
Do you think that from New Orleans' standpoint, that's something that interests them, though? I mean, why do they do that deal? They've got opportunities perhaps to move into the top 3 of the draft, plus get players back and clear salary. The Kings can't offer them the same type of package as a lot of these teams.
If those teams are willing to give that up?
Yeah.
I mean, you're a Pelicans team. You're looking for veteran leadership, right? We know about all the issues with Zion health-wise and also Brandon Ingram health-wise. Well, hey, look, Harrison Barnes, I believe he's the only player on the Kings roster to start all games last year. He's a veteran. He can do a lot, so he could help fill in for them. Pick up another center in Rashawn Holmes. We know that they've been having issues with centers, and I'm not even going to talk about the domestic stuff. But and then you acquire a really young defensive-minded point guard in Davion Mitchell. Maybe it takes the number 24 pick as well. If that happened, maybe I'm a little bit less inclined to do the deal. But, yeah, New Orleans is in a tough position here. If I were them, I'd probably hold him. Probably hold on to Zion.
Yeah, that's a really tough call to make. I just don't think – I mean, looking at New Orleans' roster – to me, in that deal, Davion Mitchell's the best piece you get out of that, right? And they've already got Kyra Lewis Jr. and Dyson Daniels, who I realize Dyson Daniels isn't a true point guard.
And my guy.
And Alvarado, as well, GTA. So to think that, okay, we're going to do this deal and Davion Mitchell's probably the best asset we're going to get in return for that, but I don't even know how much he plays on that team, I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for New Orleans.
If you're Portland, would you give up the number 3 pick for Zion?
Absolutely, I would.
Yeah.
I think Portland is in a position where very different from the Kings. The Kings can take a big swing or can take a big chance on a big-time deal like this, but they don't have to.
Yeah.
I think Portland has to. If they're going to hold on to Damian Lillard, They have to give it one shot to give him the best opportunity to win. They've got to swing big.
And we saw him take a big swing last year in taking Shaedon Sharpe, right? I thought that was a gamble for them as well. I guess it's in Portland's hands now, right? Are you rocking with Dame? Have they already decided they're going to move on from him? What do you do? But Zion, you think he's traded this offseason? Yes or no?
If I had to guess, I would say no. I think I would say no. I don't think that there are a lot of teams out there that are willing to take the big risk in terms of getting a guy that you don't know exactly how much you're going to get out of him, at least right now, as well as what it's going to cost to give up for him. There just aren't many teams, I think, that are in a position to do that right now. For a lot of these teams that are contending teams, I think they'd be taking maybe a step back in terms of what they had to give up to get him. But teams like Charlotte, who's at number 2, teams like Portland that are at number 3, that makes sense to take a gamble on him. So there's definitely a possibility, but I would say that it doesn't happen.
In terms of Bradley Beal, I've seen the Suns mentioned. I've seen the Kings mentioned. I've seen the Heat mentioned.
First of all, the Suns, if you play basketball in the NBA, the Suns are reportedly interested or trying to get you on their team. It doesn't matter who you are.
So where do you think Bradley Beal ends up? Do you think he gets traded this offseason? Where does he end up?
I think he does get traded. I mean, I think that after so many years, like you said, we presumed he was going to get traded or that he was going to ask his way out. And it just never happened. Now it seems like, there's almost no going back from this. So I do think that he gets traded. To me, I still feel as if the Miami Heat are going to be the team that wins this somehow.
Okay.
I know that they don't. They're trying not to give up Tyler Hero as part of this deal. But Beal has already expressed interest in wanting to play there. They're a team that has been on his radar, according to reports, for quite some time now. It would make a lot of sense. It gives him a chance to win.
Yeah.
I think that if he does get dealt, it's going to be Miami.
That would be a scary, scary team.
It would.
That would be a very scary team.
And I agree with Derek. I would give up Tyler Hero to get Bradley Beal.
He's the replacement.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I just stumbled upon a very weird article that says there is apparently video evidence of Ja Morant's toy gun, and it was a video that Ja Morant took himself back on May 14th of him lighting a candle with a gun lighter. Yes. And apparently this was how Ja was proving to his family that the infamous video in the strip club, he was not holding a real gun. He was holding a gun lighter. Any comments?
No comment.
Okay. All right. We'll just leave that right where it lies.
No comment.
All right. Let's move on to Chris Paul, Calvin. I believe Chris Paul is still on the Phoenix Suns roster. Their new head coach has stated that he would like Chris Paul to stay on the roster. However, we know that they've talked about potentially trading him, potentially waiving him, or stretch provisioning him. He makes a shitload of money. He's never available. He's always injured. But one of my favorite point guards of all time, Chris Paul. So, Cal, do you think he remains with Phoenix? If not, where does he go? And could he be an option for the Kings?
I don't think that he's going to remain with Phoenix, just because I feel like Phoenix is, again, another one of those teams that they've backed themselves into a really big or a really tight corner.
Yep.
And they have to do something. They can't put the same team out there again. They've got to make some changes for a number of reasons.
Christian, we're talking about Chris Paul, not Cliff Paul.
Full time to State Farm is a good prediction. He's a really almost impossible one to predict, though, right? Because, first of all, is he going to be waived? Is he not going to be waived? Are they going to have to move on from him in a trade? Or is he going to be, are they going to, like you said, restructure his contract, sign and trade, something like that? That has a large impact on which teams are going to be in on him, right? Because he right now makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and all the teams that I think are highest on the list for him, they don't have a ton of money to spend. Boston's come up, Miami's come up, the Warriors have come up. And even Sacramento. I personally would not really be big on trying to go after Chris Paul if I'm the Kings.
Yeah.
Again, you've got De'Aaron and Davion here. If you're able to keep both of them, I certainly wouldn't want to lose Davion and replace him with Chris Paul. That I don't like at all. So
damn. Well, I was just gonna tell you my dream scenario was trade Davion for Bradley Beal.
Nope. Oh, trade him for
and then I bring Chris Paul in as my backup point guard.
Well, what are you going to pay Chris Paul to come off the bench?
Veterans minimum.
Good luck with that. Maybe.
1 year deal. Win a ring in Sacramento.
Maybe. I don't see that happening, but at least not with the Kings, you know. The Lakers make a lot of sense. The Celtics make a lot of sense. Those teams I could see him taking less money to go to. I just don't see it happening with the Kings. I really don't.
Yeah. I mean, that's it's pretty normal. Pretty normal, right? You don't see a lot of guys on the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
But Calvin, times are changing. Guys want to come to Sacramento, Calvin. They want to play. They want to play with De'Aaron Fox. They want to play with Sabonis. They want to win championships. And dude, Kings are almost there, Calvin. We're on the up and up. We're just a couple of deals away from making stuff happen.
How much did Chris Paul really help the Thunder, Callum, when he went there? Veteran leadership?
They made the playoffs.
How much does that help? The Kings made the playoffs without Chris Paul.
Yeah, that's true. Have you heard anything more about John Collins and the Atlanta Hawks?
I really haven't.
I see an article here from Clutch Points, 4 best trade destinations for John Collins if the Hawks finally move on from him. I've also heard rumors that potentially they would be interested in trading their acquisition of last season, DeJounte Murray. Also saw the Lakers were interested in potentially bringing in Trae Young. What do you think happens here with Atlanta this offseason? Because they're in an interesting situation. They have a lot of talent. They have a good team. They could completely run it back if they don't have any chemistry problems and be a very competitive basketball team. Or they have a lot of trade assets and could potentially acquire some young guys and kind of reboot the rebuild. What were your thoughts there?
Again, I think that's another team that's just really difficult to predict what's going to happen with right now, because you've got a lot of rumors coming out of there that Trae Young wasn't happy. Maybe he wants out. When does he ask for a trade? Are they going to stick with John Collins? Are they not? DeJounte Murray had a really interesting offseason last year when he kind of, was all over the NBA Summer League circuit. And it didn't really go as planned this year. Now they got rid of a coach midway through the season, added a new guy. You know, there's hope that Quinn Snyder with a full off season could maybe get that team to perform better. Injuries, of course, always hurt as well. But they're a really tough team to figure out because they've got some really good players. All of those players, for the most part, are really young. And now you've got a new head coach. But again, there's this big arms race in the NBA right now where every team feels like they're one piece away from being really, really good. And I think a lot of teams there are a lot of teams in the middle of that have tough decisions to make. Do we sit back and kind of like the Kings did at the trade deadline? Do we let everybody do their damage around us and just stick with our guys and see how good it can be? Or are we going to lose out on something that could potentially take us to another level?
Yeah.
And the Hawks are definitely in that boat.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, dude. If the Lakers were able to pick up a guy like Trae Young, I would be incredibly surprised. But that would be
I don't see that
huge
happening.
move for them. That would be a huge move. We know how well LeBron plays next to really good shooters, and Trae Young is one of the best shooters in the NBA. Calvin, I just want to go back to the Kings here real quick and just say my ideal offseason for the Sacramento Kings would be trade for Bradley Beal, sign Kyle Kuzma, and bring in Chris Paul. Maybe you throw a little Dwight Howard in there. We're ready to go, dude. We're in the finals.
Sounds like a lot of money to spend to me.
Yeah, we're in the finals. I mean, money-wise, if Kuzma opts in for the $13 million that he's owed next year, and the Kings included a sign and trade with Harrison Barnes, Davion Mitchell, Kevin Huerter, and Rashawn Holmes, it would work out money-wise.
I don't see Kyle Kuzma opting in for $13 million. He's going to get way more than that.
Okay, there you go. You heard it here first. All right, anybody else you want to talk about before we move on to the NBA draft, which is Thursday? It's coming up.
We covered a lot of bases here. I mean, there's going to be a ton more rumors going around from now until free agency starts, I guess. But
Derek wants Sasha and OG. Also, good point there. Those guys would make a huge difference on the Kings. And I think what a lot of people are missing here, too, in the Sasha situation is Sasha could end up being traded in one of these deals, too. His draft rights are a thing that you could throw in on a deal, and it doesn't cost any money at all. So if you're a team trading a valuable player, maybe you'll want a guy like Sasha back in the deal. So just throw that out there as well. Also, real quick, just want to poll the audience here. We got about 20 plus people here watching on YouTube. Things are a little different this year during the draft. Obviously, the Kings are not in the top 10. So we're not going to live stream the draft. The Kings are the 24th pick. So I'd be sitting up here for 2 hours before the Kings were even on the clock. So Calvin and I are going to be doing a podcast. We just want to hear from you guys what you would prefer. Would you prefer a podcast Thursday morning before the draft? This would be around 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Would you prefer a podcast after the draft is completed? This would be Thursday night, about 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Or would you rather have a podcast Friday morning, probably around that 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time? So let me know here in the chat. Let's try and nail down a time before we end the stream today here. And we'll definitely get Thursdays or Fridays stream scheduled. Derek says after the draft. I'm on board for that. But let me know. Love to hear from everybody here. Okay, Calvin, let's talk about the draft. It's Thursday. What day is Thursday? 24th?
22nd.
Thursday the 22nd. I don't even know what time the draft starts at. I want to say 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, something like that.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe a little
4.
earlier. Maybe 4 p.m. I'll definitely be watching it. I'll be live on Twitter, tweeting about it. So if you want to interact with me, you can find me on Twitter. You can also catch me in the DMs. But the Kings currently have pick number 24. That pick cannot be traded until the draft because next year's pick is lottery protected due to the Kevin Huerter trade. You cannot trade consecutive draft picks. The Kings also have 2 second-round draft picks in this draft. They have the 38th pick overall, which is a second-round pick, and that is in the Halliburton deal, I believe. So that is from Indiana. And then the Kings also have a very, very late second-round pick number 54, which is the Kings pick because we did so good this season. So, Calvin, let's kind of start off, before we talk about the Kings, you want to start off with, overall feelings around the draft, top maybe 5 picks, some movement, if you think any major deals are going to be done, stuff like that.
Well, I do think there's going to be some movement. Probably not. I think in years past, recent years, you've expected or suspected there was going to be more movement than there is this year. I think you're going to see a bunch of teams try to get into that top 2 or 3 with Charlotte and Portland. And for me, Portland, ever since the draft lottery, I've kind of had it in my mind that they're not going to make that pick. They're going to make it, but they're going to be trading
Portland
it to somebody else.
3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because again, I just think that if you're going to keep Damian Lillard, this is too big of an opportunity to squander. You being able to use that pick to get another big-time player to pair with him, because there are teams that are going to want to jump in and with the chance to take a guy like Scoot Henderson, who should probably be there still.
Do you think San Antonio would consider Damian Lillard in the number 3 pick for number 1?
I don't.
Not at all.
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to get any there is going to be no scenario where San Antonio moves off of this pick.
Okay. So top 5 picks currently are San Antonio with number 1, Charlotte with number 2, Portland with number 3, Houston at number 4, and Detroit at pick number 5. Calvin, in order, who are your 5 best players in this year's draft?
Oh, man. That's tough. Because, of course, so many of these guys that get into the top 10 are based on fit and potential and upside, right? Because a lot of them are so young. Of course, everybody's going to put Victor Wembanyama at the top of the draft. I do think that there are some concerns. There's always concerns with any draft prospect, but maybe there are a few more concerns that are starting to pop up with, being able to handle the size, the speed of the game.
He's 7'5", dude.
That's
crazy,
not the height.
Though. I know,
yes,
but that's
not
crazy.
the height. But his ability to guard players that are much more, have a lot of size on him down low, rebounding, things like that. All of that aside, you don't pass up on an opportunity to take a guy at 7'5" who can handle the ball like a wing player, shoot the ball like a guard. The dude there's never been anybody quite like him. So definitely he's going to be at the top of this list. To me, Scoot Henderson is still the second best player available in this draft. I know a lot of people like Brandon Miller. I think he's a really solid overall talent, complete game.
He's 15 inches shorter than Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah. Scoot Henderson?
Yeah. 15 inches shorter.
Yes.
Wow.
Scoot Henderson he's got it all. I mean, other than being, taller than 6'2". In terms of his game, there's nothing he can't do. Incredibly explosive for a guy his size. An NBA-ready body as well for somebody who I think is still 19 years old. I think he's got the potential to be a really, really good player, all-star level player in the draft. Outside of those top 3, I think it becomes a discussion of, who do you like best for that particular fit, or who do you think is going to project, to be the best player. This draft is really deep when it comes to wings. There's the Thompson twins out there from Overtime Elite, very raw players, again, incredibly high potential when it comes to their athletic ability, defensive versatility. If they can turn themselves into, complete players in the NBA, develop a better outside shot, there's definitely a good spot for them for a long time to come. I really like guys that come from proven programs, so Cam Whitmore is going to be high on my list as well. I love Taylor Hendricks, a guy that really rose up the draft board very, very highly. I think he's a Draymond Green type player who's a much better outside shooter than Draymond. A 6'8" guy, 220 pounds-ish, something like that. Really solid rebounder, blocked close to 3 shots a game at UCF this year as a freshman. He's one of my favorite players in the draft because I think his game is tailor-made for most NBA rosters. And then I like Anthony Black as well. I think the guy is an incredibly
Big Anthony Black
versatile. You and I got to see him play here in Maui.
Yep.
He's the real deal, I think, a guy with his size, his vision, ability to handle the ball. And again, a lot of defensive upside there as well. I think he's going to be a really, really good player.
Yeah, another guy to shout out who also plays for Arkansas that we did not get to see play because he did miss the tournament, but Nick Smith Jr., big fan of his.
That was a guy who, before the season started, people were talking about him as a top 3 potential pick, top 5, top 3 pick.
And Calvin, I've drafted him in NBA 2K lots of times. He's a stud in NBA 2K, so I make all my decisions based on NBA 2K. Just kidding. And then a lot of Kings fans are circling Chris Murray. That is Keegan's brother. He's projected right now to go pick 20 to the Houston Rockets. If he's available, it's going to be hard for the Kings not to take him, the pressure on taking him. But currently the Kings are slotted at pick number 24. And they're taking an international player, a center from Barcelona, projected in this draft. But Calvin, I mean, what do you think? What's the best use of the 24th pick for the Kings? Is it waiting, taking a player that maybe slides? Is it drafting a guy that maybe you've circled and nobody else really has on their radar? Is it trading the pick? Where are you at right now with this?
Well, I would like to say trading the pick, but of course it all depends on what you're going to get in return for that, right?
Yeah.
I think that could be potentially the best use of that pick, but it still remains to be seen, what that deal would be and who and what player you would be getting in return for it. The good news for Sacramento is, like I said before, this is a wing-heavy draft with guys that have a lot of upside, two-way player upside, which is exactly what the Kings are looking for right now. And there's going to be, I think, 5 to 6 players that they should be able to look at and say, realistically, one of these guys should be available at 24 for us. So it really just becomes a question of who do you like the best. And we're talking about Chris Murray. We're talking about Maxwell Lewis, Colby Jones from Xavier. I think they have a pretty substantial number of options at this pick that you would be happy with at the end of the day if they ended up with any one of those guys. So you're going to have to wait and see what happens, picks 15 to 20, really, if anybody jumps out and really surprises you by taking someone ahead of what you expected them to be, or somebody trades up into that section of the draft. And then, of course, whether Monty is going to be fielding calls for trading the 24th pick, and we'll see what happens there. But I think at the end of the day, the good news is there is going to be somebody available at 24 that would make sense for the Kings to draft and would fit into the team's plans for the future.
Yeah. Shout out to Timmy. Timmy's here in the chat. Timmy, I'm playing ball on Thursday morning. Hopefully I'll see you at the gym. Would love to dunk on you. I'm in the boat. The Kings trade the pick. I think it's time. We were patient. They made their move. They traded for Sabonis. Patient again. Now it's time to make another move. Bring in another big name. But of course, if a Nick Smith Jr. fell or one of these other guys fell, I would love to take them at pick number 24. But I ultimately think that pick is traded. Let's talk about pick number 38. There's a guy who's still available at 38, who was projected to be an early first-round pick. He's had some issues. I'm talking about Imani Bates. Calvin, I'm pulling up pictures of Imani Bates right now. He's got the same hairdo as John Morant, and he's currently dealing with a gun charge.
Yep.
Calvin, is this a situation you really want to take on with the Kings?
Personally, I would. First of all, Imani Bates has not even come close to getting to John Morant's level in terms of trouble or suspension, all that stuff. We're talking about a guy that had a big fall from grace, was the number 1 rated player coming out of high school, went to Memphis. It didn't work out there. Ended up going back home where he's from, to Michigan, to Eastern Michigan. And now he's fallen big time in the draft. So that can
53.
that can do one of two things to a guy, right?
Yeah.
It can really motivate them to get back to the top of his game and prove everybody wrong, or you can shut down completely and fade to black. I think where the Kings are right now, again, given the upside of the roster, the expectation that this team is going to continue to get better, getting him in the second round could potentially be an absolute steal.
Yeah.
And so that is a sort of project, if you want to call it, that I would be 100% willing to do if I'm Sacramento.
Yeah, that could be a home run for the Kings. Would you spend your first second-round pick on him, or are you going to hope he falls to 54?
That's a tough call. That's a tough call. I probably, I guess maybe depending on what happens with the first-round pick,
yeah,
whether you end up with drafting a guy there that you really like, or you trade that for somebody you like even more, then you feel like, okay, I'm really set up here. I'm fine with using the 38th pick.
Yeah, we're already up 4. It's the 9th inning. I'm swinging for the fences.
Exactly.
Why not? Let's see what happens. That'd be big. That would be big. And we know Monty's been known to be patient at times and take chances at other times. Hopefully this is a time to take chances. So definitely we will be live Thursday after the draft. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Hit that notification cowbell on the YouTube channel. You'll get notified every time we post a new video. I'll get that scheduled here this afternoon. David says, do not trade for Beal in all capitals. David would love to hear from you. Why do you not want to trade for Bradley Beal? And Calvin, I want to end the show here talking about what you would trade for Bradley Beal. And what do you think, honestly, realistically, what do you think it would take from the Kings to pry a guy like Bradley Beal away from the Washington Wizards?
I think it's going to take a lot. I mean, well, first of all, we know he makes a lot of money, so you already have to kind of assume that you're going to have to send a lot out in order to take him back. But I think Washington is also, they're hitting the reset button, right? So they're looking for draft picks on top of that.
Yep.
And not to mention, you're going to have a ton of competition out there, which is just going to continue to drive the price higher and higher. So I think you're looking at potentially 3 picks and some players that you are going to be, happy that you get Bradley Beal with, but maybe unhappy that you have to send everybody away at the same time.
3 picks is a lot.
I think it's going to take a lot. I really do.
But at the same time, Calvin, if you're in the playoffs, if you're deep in the playoffs every single year, those picks are much less valuable, right?
That's true.
So that's
true.
If the Kings get Bradley Beal, if they're winning basketball games, I don't think they care about the draft picks.
It's a tough situation because, again, he's got, the right of first refusal on everything, right? So he can kind of force his way to the team that he wants to go to.
He could force his way in and out of Sacramento.
In and out, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
a lot of power.
It's a tough one. I'm curious, David, would you trade for OG if you're completely against trading for Bradley Beal?
Yeah. And another thing I'm just going to throw out here is it's like just look at Bradley Beal's past. Another reason why I'm so open to bringing Bradley Beal to the team is the dude is not a complainer. He's not a guy that throws his team or his teammates under the bus. He doesn't have any issues or hasn't had any issues off the court, outside of basketball, stuff like that. He's a true professional. And that's really what I'm looking for the Kings to pick up is true professionals that do their job, that don't complain. And you go out there, you work as hard as you can, and you're happy with the results, good or bad. And I think that Bradley Beal would fit perfectly on this Kings team. I mentioned the similarities between John Wall and De'Aaron Fox. And I think that Fox and Beal could be more productive than Wall and Beal were at the time. So we'll see what happens. Thank you, everybody, for reaching out here. Timmy says you guys have a great core. Just keep drafting quality ballers that fit what Brown wants. Also a very good point. Low risk, medium reward kind of take there. David says, Beal is injury prone. Contract is too big. Not worth it. Look elsewhere for talent. Those are the knocks.
They are.
Those are the cons, right? Every time you look at any situation, you write the pros, you write the cons, and you weigh them out. Yes, those are the cons. In my opinion, the pros outweigh the cons. But what am I? Just a guy, just a bartender here talking about basketball on a YouTube channel in the middle of the ocean, Calvin.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Any last thoughts for the royal family out there?
We don't have to take on a massive contract, and if what we give is reasonable.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't want to give up Keegan. I don't want to give up
That's the goal with any trade. But when it comes to trade, the bigger the fish, the bigger the – I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. But
the bigger the frying
pan. The bigger the frying pan. Well, the more you're going to have to give up, obviously. So, it just – again, to me, it goes back to the Kings are in a situation now where these opportunities are available to them for the first time in a long time, and it's a total guessing game. You add Bradley Beal to Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, and then you fill out whatever it is around him or around those three. Is that better than sticking with the main group of guys that they have right now?
Yeah, great point.
I don't know.
Point. Monty, in Monty we trust. In Monty we trust. Anyways, thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate you all. Shout out to Callum. Callum is part of the royal family. But guys, don't forget to smash up that like button, hit that subscribe button. We will see you all on Thursday after the draft, unless the Kings make a big move before then. We will be here to cover it. But thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend. In the meantime, go Kings. Where's the bouncer?